someone like Skinner who would say that, people are products of their environment. So people are products, and then we were just slaves to our sense data. It's completely and utterly wrong. It is seriously wrong. And I can prove that with a meme. There was a popular meme that I seen on the internet one day. And it blew me back. Like, it literally blew me back. And it's not even that really amazing. It's not even funny. I don't even think it's appropriate to call it a meme. It's more like a deep cartoon. I guess you could call it a meme. It's more like a deep moving cartoon. It's like a story. It's a one-page story. I was already skeptical of people like Skinner and people who think that we're just causation creatures when that's so wrong. So this picture, what is it? So this shows two guys, two stick figures or whatever. There's variations of it, but the one I seen, it was a drawing, and it was a guy. He walked up to this other guy and he said, why are you an alcoholic? And he said, oh, because my dad was an alcoholic. And this guy was really like, he had like messy hair, and he was like smudges all over his face, looked like someone you would try to avoid at all costs. So he said, why are you an alcoholic? My dad was one. And that makes a whole lot of sense. And you can understand that, because if you were in that environment, if you were in that ecosystem of people who are subject to drugs, who are subject to these certain behaviors, that has to a certain extent, that has an effect on you. And people are, and they're right about that. Psychologists are right about that in that certain kind of way. But what they don't understand is that there is a difference between putting people, and especially testing people on rats, testing human being functions on rats. And even though there is a tight relation, you can get an approximate presupposition from testing on animals. For instance, we test things on animals for humans all the time. There is a tight connection there. But the thing is, when we're talking about and even moral ways, we're talking about like something as deep as somebody's, it's not just behavior. It's not just a causal reaction like how an animal would. And I'm not even like a super expert on like animal research studies or biology. I'm not even like a huge expert on that. But if you look at this from a philosophical standpoint, we're not just talking about behavior. We're talking about something deeper than that. We're talking about something deeper than science, something deeper than you can calculate in a petri dish. We're talking about something deeper. These are moral presuppositions, how Kant was talking about. These are a priori moral interpretations that we're discussing. It's not just behavior. To take behavior in a box and say this is behavior, so I do this, I say this, I act this certain way, and treat it as a thing in and of itself is wrong. It's a wrong approach. When it's something that is deeper, that's driving that behavior. We had the presuppositions first. I don't think it's right to just section off behavior in its own thing in and of itself. We have the presuppositions first. That's what Kant's point was. We have these moral presuppositions first. Why am I going to do that? Because it's a moral obligation. Why am I going to look at this thing? Why am I going to value this more than I'll value this other object I'm staring at? This is the relevance realization that John Rebecca talks about. What is guiding my perceptions? What is guiding me to care about certain things? There's something deeper, more than just mere behavior. So this guy, he said, why are you an alcoholic? My dad was one. That's a damn good explanation. Like, I was in that environment. That's all I knew. This is all I was. I was heavily influenced by that. And so he's not wrong for that. He's not wrong to have an event like that impact him. But the word, when people use that word, well, because, it's like, well, are we just products of the environment? Like, it's why were you? Well, because my dad was one. It's a reasonable answer, but it's not the answer. It's not the answer. There's something deeper going on. So it went from that picture and then jumped to the next one. And it was a really successful human being. I know it sounds corny, but this is real. It went to a successful human being. He had a nice, he looked presentable, not like the guy who was all, beat up and he just got jumped by like 3 MMA fighters. He was successful. He had nice hair. He had a nice car. He had a successful life. And the same guy walked up to him. He said, how'd you get all that stuff? How did you obtain that success? How did you beat your primal instincts? How did you not just obsess over, video games and eating Cheetos all day long? How did you get to this specific point in life? He looked at him, he said, because my dad was an alcoholic. You have the free will, and this is what scientists don't understand. You have that free will to choose. You have that free will to choose. And you can't replicate that in an experiment because you're missing the point. You're missing the point. It doesn't come down to data. It doesn't come down to analytics. That point, that meta point that you have the choice, that is the answer, because that is where everything else is derived from. It doesn't start with the abstracted behavior. It doesn't start there. It starts with the moral presuppositions of me being in that environment, of me seeing how this substance affects my father or my mother or my aunt or my uncle or whoever. It starts off with that. It starts off with that moral presupposition for me to even value what that other person does. For me to even value that I value what I see other people do. There's too many variables to construct behaviorism down to mere causation.